Welcome to the Roy Snarr Show, entrepreneurship and giving back. Now, here's your host, Roy Snarr.
Welcome back to the Roy Snarr Show. Today, we have a very special guest. She's a good friend of mine. She's a national speaker, very well known in the insurance industry and even outside of the insurance industry. She's the owner of Sandra Gebhardt Marketing. We have Sandra Gebhardt. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Oh, like she sounds cool.
Yeah, she does sound pretty cool. Then you get to know her. It's a whole other story.
Right.
But
It's always so weird when people do an intro. You're like, oh, that sounds neat.
it does. It's always hard for me too, because like if I'm on somebody's show, they're like, "Well, tell us about yourself." I'm like, "Well, I don't want to be conceited and feel weird about it, you know." But yeah. Anyways, she is amazing. She's done a lot of marketing for our company. We're working with her, and also hundreds of agents, and just a great resource. And she's got a phenomenal story of how she started from nothing and built up a very good practice, and where she's going today with it, and where she's going to be in the next 10 years. We're going to learn all of this, and maybe some free tips and secrets on how to do some social media marketing. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you started.
So awesome. I can. Thank you for having me.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Awkward working, but that's how I roll.
There you go.
Once again, Sandra Gebhardt. I'm from Roundup, Montana. So when I first got started in the industry, I was actually a P&C agent. We had our own business, and about 6 months into us owning that business, my husband got a brain tumor.
Oh.
So we had to go down to Arizona to the Mayo Clinic to fight that battle. And in doing that, we didn't have the automation technologies. This was about 7-8 years ago now. I was so good with dates. And
math, who needs it?
Right? It was the past. It's either 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years ago with me. But anyway, we didn't have the automation technology, so it was not as easy to run a business remotely as it is now. So it was about a 6-month battle, and we ended up deciding to sell the agency. And in true Gebhardt dramatic fashion, we sold it. The guy sent me the paperwork the day that Darren went into brain surgery.
Wow.
So I do not suggest doing this. Read your contracts. But once we got the brain tumor done, we got the business sold, I learned that I had signed a 5-year non-compete clause I couldn't sell insurance in Montana or any states that touched Montana.
Wow.
Which technically would be like all the states except for Alaska and Hawaii. So I was in a kind of a weird spot. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I thought I wanted to sell life insurance. And I had gotten into the digital marketing space when I was selling as a PNC agent. Just because, you can only cold call for so long.
Oh yeah.
And
it's not fun.
I was attending like every single networking event and doing all of that kind of grassroots stuff. And I was like, there's got to be an easier way. So I hired a mentor, learned how to do the digital marketing, loved it, focused on the organic side of things, did some paid sides. And after everything kind of calmed down in February of the next year, I hired a couple mentors. And I was like, I told Darren, I was like, I think I want to go in full time with this digital marketing and see if there's something there. So I hired my mentors, and they mentally just kind of batted me around a little bit, helped me get my mindset strong, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. So now how many years have you been doing the social media marketing on your own?
On my own. So my son, it was funny because when Darren's particular brain tumor made it to where we couldn't have kids, and I was like, I do what I want. So we found out we were pregnant with Gage right before we left to get the tumor out.
Oh, wow.
So the Mayo Clinic calls him the miracle baby. I'm like, that shouldn't go to his head.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool though.
But so he just turned 5, so about 5.5 years, 6 years.
Perfect.
This week actually is my 2-year anniversary of the first time I took a stage.
Wow.
To present on what I present on at different events.
That's amazing. So you've taken the social media career, which has allowed you to capitalize on, gaining a lot of audience and clients. And then with those same clients, they have stages. And then you've worked your way in to say, hey, look, let me go on to stage. And is that one of your bigger goals, is to start speaking all over the country?
Yes. So that's my focus for next year, is to start. My ultimate goal is to be able to take the A Bit Too Much that I did my TEDx talk on, and that I'm starting to talk on now, take that message and share it out to the world, because the message itself isn't female or male. It's we've all been told at some point we're a bit too something, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Believe it or not, people have told me I talk too much.
Oh, they told you that?
I'm too creative. I'm too outside the box, things like that. And when I applied for my TEDx talk, I was like, this is what I want to talk on. And my mentor, Bobby Stocks, he's like, only you would name a TEDx talk a bit too much. And
that's really clever.
And I've just taken it and really, now we've got the apparel line and stickers. And I love sharing that message of, I start every talk with who here has been told they're too quiet? And then who here has been told they're too loud? Yeah. Right. And almost everybody raises their hands for one or the other. And then I'll say, who's been told they're too heavy or too skinny. Right. And when you start looking at it that way, I'm like, okay, well, who's the perfect person then? Yeah. If you're too loud, if you're too quiet, and your friend's too quiet, you're too heavy, and your friend's too skinny, like, what is that ideal person? And I always go back to, I remember, I think it was like the late 90s or early 2000s, a long time ago, when people were like, oh, I wish I had Angelina Jolie's lips or Jennifer Aniston's cheeks or things like that. Yeah. And somebody took, it was when computers were still kind of new, and somebody took and put all those pieces together, and it made this really ugly human.
Right. Oh, wow.
And it was really interesting, and that stuck with me. I remembered seeing that, because they had cut out magazine pieces and tried to use the technology then. Wow. I'm sure you can do it with AI now, but the AI reminds me of that, because there's always something kind of off with the human's face, right?
Sure.
So I get to thinking about that, when people tell you you're too all these different things and you try to change it, you kind of turn yourself into an ugly human, right? Ooh. That's when we start getting chips on our shoulders. And we start wanting to fight back, because people are like, oh, you're too loud. So then you try to back off a little bit and you try to talk less. And then people are like, well, you're too quiet. And you're like, well, what the hell do you want me to be then? Right? So that's when, if you really look at people that or you interact with that have a chip on their shoulder, it's typically because they're living outside of their own integrity. They're living outside of their own sparkle, is what I call it. Usually the things people say are too much about you is actually your sparkle. Yeah. And it's taking that sparkle and figuring out how to live in the world with it. Right. And it's a fine line of I just made a new pack of stickers that say, I'm not a bitch, I have boundaries. Because a lot of times, if you tell somebody no, they expect an answer from that. Right. Or even last night when we were getting off the plane, Faith and I was like, oh, hold on, everybody, I need to get my bag. And some people might be like, oh, well, you're being pretty bitchy right now. And I'm like, no, this is my need right now. I need to get my bag, and I need all of you guys to just sit down, because it's not time to get off the plane yet.
Yeah, really, yeah.
So it's taking that sparkle. I've always been told I'm a bit too assertive. So it's taking it and using it for good. Now, because you can overcompensate, and that's when you're living out of integrity, right? And that's when you're like, hey, you guys get the hell out of my way. I'm trying to get my bag. Right. You see the difference?
Yeah, you can balance it out, because a lot of us have those self-limiting beliefs put on ourselves, because we're told, okay, well, don't be too loud, don't be too quiet, don't do this, don't do that. And it can help, like you said, mold a person. You can become enculturated or indoctrinated in this particular ideology or idea and the lifestyle. And it's not really you. And that's where those people are naturally supposed to be themselves. And that's where they develop these chips on the shoulder or grudges, or they're just not comfortable with being who they are. So you're basically just elaborating on, hey, how do you just be yourself, right? If you're naturally quiet, cool. You don't have to overcompensate and get crazy with it. And if you're naturally loud and talk a lot, that's one of my challenges. Just balance it, but always still be yourself.
But now people pay us to speak on their stages.
Yeah, which is really cool.